Just a rebel with a lightsaber dream. Lost my hand, lost my friend, lost my self-esteem.
Again, that's part of it. Tunisia. I mean, look, it was. We went because John Barry knew it looked like what Ralph McQuarrie had painted as Tatooine, and he didn't have to build anything. We only had to add a few domes and stuff, but the rest were built, props and vehicles and everything. So, and it was very cheap at that point, so it fitted a budget. But it transformed the movie into. I don't think anyone had seen kind of science fiction that way before, where you used an ancient world and made it look like a science fiction world.
Yeah, like a science fiction, like tribal element almost. Like you never really saw that. You just saw kind of the spaceships and the sleek outer space stuff. You didn't really see it at like a planet level.
Yeah. It was also, well, I could never, even Flash Gordon, I couldn't watch it. You know, it's all like shiny and new and space guns that were terrible. I mean, everything, nothing, to me, nothing was real. So that was the determination for George, because George kept telling me, I'm making a documentary, I'm not making a science fiction film. And that was the mantra for us.
And I think that's honestly the most fascinating thing too. I've watched Star Wars so many times before I ever actually knew the stories behind it. And like to find out that literally everything I'm looking at is like reused junk. Like, and it looks like it was supposed to be there. It doesn't look like a prop. It doesn't look like it looks like it's from outer space. It looks like that's a lightsaber. That's binoculars. That's what a spaceship interior would look like. Like, it looks like it all should be there.
Yeah, that was, I had, luckily, I don't know why, but I'd been on a submarine. That's how I remembered it. And it was I think there's a Russian one, and there's one I think in America at Long Beach somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you go on, it's shocking. It's like this thing has wheels that turn and dripping and full of pipes, and you think, wow, this thing. But it became my kind of mantra. That's how it would be. These guys going up to space in the early days, they were crammed in these things with everywhere with switches, and there's no time, money, or excuse to do anything like a leather armchair or like a nice bridge like in Star Trek.
No comfort.
No, everything has to be, and John and I took that mantra with everything. Like I found in the aircraft scrap yards, because there were jetliners there, that they were metal aluminium that they used to heat the food for the passengers in. I bought so many of those that they were junk. I mean, no one wanted them. I could buy 20 for a couple of pounds. They're all over Star Wars if you look, especially in Luke's homestead. But we kind of reasoned out, John and I, a planet like that, everything would be modular, everything would be shipped out. So every bit of weight would be, nothing could be not made to work and economically. So, I mean, even the design of the Aunt Beru's kitchen, he exactly copied an airliner shape, if you watch it, because that, again, would be probably shipped up there, and that's how that would have had the strength and be easy to do. It was, I think that's why, in terms of like a designer, set decorator, if we do our work well, no one notices it. That's the big thing, We're not there like before that, and even the early James Bond, you're going, wow, look at this set, wow, look at the designer, what he did. That was the opposite reasoning I wanted for Star Wars. We didn't want anything to stand out, and so in the end, no one thinks anyone did it. So John and I kind of got left out of the whole thing because everyone thought, well, it's real. That's what happens. So and it was just just luck at the time. I mean, honestly, can you imagine now? There were Rolls-Royce Derwent engines just rotting in the rain. No one wanted it. All those airplanes, they were mountains of scrap. They would break them up and leave them. And planes were very lightweight metals, so there was no scrap value to it. They wanted steel or iron. So it was lucky for me because there was nowhere to go. After Alien, they realized, oh my God, there's money here. So then now it was cheaper. When on Phantom Menace, Rick McCallum told me it was cheaper for them to get a transport plane and buy scrap from the scrap yards, from the aircraft scrap yards in Texas, and fly it to London, than rent it from houses where they just were renting the stuff now for movies.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, and there was just so many things that just like I like the part where it was from his like 90s documentary, and he was showing like the paintings inside of like the homes, and they're like, oh well, who did that? And he's like, those were just there. Like,
Yes. Yeah, that was
just
a
happened to have these
revelation.
really cool paintings.
That was actually even a revelation to David West Reynolds, because he was talking about that, saying, oh, look what they did and how they painted this. And I said, no, that was there. We loved it. So we just left it. That was an ancient kind of, those are the things that I think George had certainly an aptitude to understand it. And so I did, and John Barry did. That then other designers would go and said, no, that's not how I want it. I want it all painted and I want it done like this. But when you see stuff that's so interesting, and John Barry said that once, he said, there is, you look at whatever it was for the lightsaber, when you look at it, it's a very interestingly made for a purpose and it's got a reason to it, but you're not quite sure what it is, but that gives it that weight. And I think that's true of all of that. That's, again, we could have easily just said, no, the roof shouldn't be like that. We want it like this. That's because we're saying that's how it should be done. But no, when you see something interesting, you adapt to it. Same as the domes on the top. All those were there. They were just part of the ancient architecture. And John made just a few more to add on, just to give it... it just created that little edge of being a science fiction world.
Yeah, I honestly can't think of a structure in a desert planet without it being a dome. Like that's just the way it looks in my head. Like
it's true. I think I told the story in there where David West Reynolds, when he went back and it was all gone, but he found the dome that we'd put on top of the cantina. It was upside down. It was a trough for water for the goats to drink out of.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, that's recycling, really, isn't it, in its purest form?
Yeah. Yeah, you guys recycled all that stuff, and then the people like that lived there, they went on to recycle it too. Like it just had its own little circle of life.
Well, the cantina door was holding the chickens in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a door to the pen. But David was determined to take that one home, and he had no money. So he had to pay $100 for it. He was really tried to bargain, and he said, well, in the end, I had to do it. And then he couldn't get it on the plane, so you had to have it sawn in half. Got it back in 2 pieces. His father restored it for him, and that's now with Steve Sansweet in Rancho Obi-Wan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, it's all in the same kind of vein,
Yeah, it's just insane when you just kind of think about it. Like it's, and he was like just walking around, like, and then these people are just living like their normal lives, unaware that like they're literally surrounded by like pieces of pop culture history just around them.
Yeah, no, they're just farmers, and
yeah,
really had no awareness of what. When I was determined with the outside of the cantina to because George kept talking about it was a spaghetti western, to make it like my version of a hitching post, and to get all those. So the the dewback that we had that was embarrassing, it only wobbled its head. It wouldn't do any more. There's no time or money to do it. John Barry was so embarrassed by it, but I got it brought back, and there was only a few of us, and the owner of that building kept coming out and had no idea what we were doing, but he would come and look. And then that day that thing came, we put it up outside. He came out of the house, screamed, ran in, got a huge club, came out and was whacking the animal. And the head wobbled when he was hitting it because it was on that string. So that made it worse. He thought it was real, and dust was coming out of it. He wouldn't stop hitting it. We were hiding with laughter, actually. He never fully accepted that it wasn't an animal. Every time he came out of his house, he had the club with him, and he was giving this thing a wary eye, just waiting that it was going to spring at him. So, they were primitive farmers at those times, and there was very little culture of tourism or anything there in those places. So, it was fun times.
One of the few people with an actual bantha attack story.
Yes, no, for real. Yeah, absolutely. Now he's probably selling tickets outside outside his house.
They've got their own cryptid lore now over there.
Yeah.